Chapter 38. Rather than turning around to face the threat, Noble reversed his mag boots and launched off the side of the ship. Pine cones bumped off his suit as he reached the end of the slack and pulled hard. He swung over the ship's side and onto its spine near the tail. He locked his mag boots to the hull, heart pounding and nearly hyperventilating. The thick cloud of pine cones had scattered in various directions from his escape, but were already regathering. He didn't give a shit about that so long as the things stayed away from him. "Black!" he yelled. "Get me some help, now!"
"Captain Dunn is on his way,"
the AI said. Noble barely heard the response. The pine cones were rising away from the heat vents and coming closer to him. Noble pulled on the tether, but he was out of slack. If they came any closer, he either had to mag-walk further toward the bow and take his chances they would catch him, or disconnect the tether and jet away. Neither was a good option. Mag-walking wasn't something he was good at, and jetting without a tether? He was aces at mag-walking compared to that. Dunn was on his way. At least that was something. With any luck, the captain brought weapons when he left the airlock, or they were both screwed. A yellow hazard alert popped up on his HUD. Incoming projectile. He had time to blink at the alert and open his mouth before something streaked through the darkness toward the cloud of pine cones. The creatures seemed to sense the approaching shadow. The objects scattered in all directions, many of them heading his way. Noble reflexively put his hands in front of his helmet to shield him, but it didn't make a difference. Breath rushed out of his lungs as the creatures smashed into his chest and waist. The armor prevented the pine cones from puncturing the suit, but that didn't keep him from feeling every impact. His chest screamed with pain as a rib broke in half. He leaned sideways, feet still stuck to the hull from the force. Pine cones bounced off his suit in all directions, and then something slammed into the hull next to him. Doubled over in pain, his HUD flashed red alert messages. Radioactive hazard. Noble managed to gather his wits and checked his helmet cam. Then he began to scream. The object that struck the hull looked like something out of his worst nightmares. It had more arms than his terrified mind could count, each of them covered in waving bristles. The creature reached out its arms and plucked several pine cones out of the air. Glistening silvery liquid shot from its mandible-filled mouth on the first pine cone in its grasp. He tried to step sideways, yelling with the pain. The starfish-like creature swung one of its free arms and slapped his leg just below the knee. The force snapped the bone with a crunch that echoed inside his suit. Noble emptied the rest of the air in his lungs with a short-lived scream. More alerts flashed on his HUD. Noble had just enough consciousness to realize the radiation alert was critical. Seeing double, he pulled the vibroblade from his belt. Tears stained his cheeks and his mind burned with the pain. Operating on instinct, he cut the tether and reversed the magnetics on his boots. He felt the grind of bone on bone as he shot away from the hull and into space. Vision fading into darkness, he saw his leg flopping unnaturally in the ZG. Before he blacked out, he had just enough time to activate his beacon. Chapter 39. Gunny watched the thing crawl out of the trench. Before he lost sight of it, he saw its silhouette in the lights of Talby's SV-52. His mouth dropped open as the creature began its attack. "Went!" he yelled. "Get us the fuck out of here!"
"On it, Gunny,"
Went said. Gunny might have been wrong, but the words sounded as though they came through clenched teeth. He activated the general comms. "Talby is in trouble. I repeat, Talby is under attack."
"Gunny,"
Oak said.
"head for the tail section. Get there now."
"Shit," Gunny said. "Went?"
"I heard him,"
the Marine said. He hit the thrusters hard, and Gunny watched the SV-52's lights turn into pinpricks. "Copenhagen," Gunny said over the squad channel. "Get ready for a hot pickup."
"Hi, Gunny,"
she said. Gunny readjusted his position and maglocked his boots to the skiff's deck. After he popped the locker open, he pulled out a flechette rifle. Take this now and don't you dare lose it." Like's voice stuttered through the comms, but he reached out his hands and took the rifle. Gunny maglocked one to his side and turned to face the skiff's bow. Even at this speed, the mag boots kept their connection to the Ferris deck. Gunny mag-walked to the gunner's dais and stepped into the weapon array. "Don't you fire until I tell you to."
"What am I going to be firing at?"
the young Marine asked. "Whatever the fuck I tell you to," Gunny yelled. "Went! Distance!"
We'll be at the spindle in 10 seconds.
Gunny licked his lips as he tried to calculate the meters separating the skiff from S&R Black. Oaks, can you get the ship closer to us?
No, Gunny.
The lieutenant said. He sounded pissed as hell.
I can't risk using the thrusters. I might fry the captain and Noble.
Gunny blinked. The captain is outside?
Aye.
Oaks said.
Just get here.
Cursing, Gunny connected his block and activated the targeting array on the mounted gun. He swiveled until he found S&R Black in the distance. The illumination on the ship was just enough to show him a nest of shadows near the heat vents. The amorphous blobs seemed to be scattering in all directions, but still clumping together in groups. Too far, he said aloud. Too goddamn far. The skiff lurched as Went fired the thrusters to brake. Copenhagen and Murdoch stood next to the spindle, their suit lights flashing in the darkness. Went killed the skiff's momentum to less than a meter per second. Copenhagen, Murdoch, use your thrusters and get the hell over here, Gunny yelled. The two Marines launched themselves at the skiff. A second before Copenhagen slammed into the gunwale, she put out her arms and feet. Her boots hit the side of the skiff and maglocked immediately. Her hands shot forward from the momentum, and she cushioned the blow by flexing her elbows as they connected. Murdoch, less skilled, was more than a meter above the gunwale. The kid was going to miss the skiff. Gunny saw what was about to happen, stood to his full height, and reached out an arm. Murdoch flailed the air with pinwheeling arms, screaming through the comms. Gunny left the gun mount and mag-walked to the pilot's chair. The line gun sat next to Went. He released it from the deck, turned, and aimed. Murdoch flew over the skiff. Gunny set his boots to maximum and fired. The rocket-propelled magnetic harpoon hit Murdoch dead center in the back. Gunny increased the tension on the line just as the first few meters of slack ran out. The jolt nearly dislocated his shoulders. Groaning in pain, he leaned back as far as he could and activated the line gun's micro-engine. The line began retracting into the spool. Murdoch was still yelling. Shut the fuck up already. I've got you, Gunny said in a low growl. Went, I've got him. Punch it. The skiff's thrusters fired again. Gunny pulled Murdoch down and into the skiff. The young Marine's mag boots locked him to the deck. You two, get rifles, he said. Now!
Aye, Gunny.
Copenhagen said. She clapped Murdoch on the back, and the kid finally seemed to realize he was safe. The two of them headed for the locker. Gunny's arms tingled with pain. He strapped the line gun to his leg and stepped back into the mounted gun. Went, status.
10 seconds to get off this wreck.
He sighted through the targeting array once more. Something moved on top of the ship near the tail. No, several somethings. Hang on, Noble. Hang on, Gunny said under his breath. Chapter 40. Once upon a time, Second Lieutenant Eric Dunn led 2 squads through a minefield of broken ship debris and countless floating corpses to a freighter filled with combatants. His mission was to capture the freighter or destroy it by any means necessary. His squads captured the ship, but lost 5 Marines, a skiff, and he nearly died in the process. For that quote-unquote success, he was given commendations and promoted to the rank of first lieutenant. Every time he entered space with only a suit protecting his body from vacuum and temperatures that could either fry or freeze him, the void calmed him instead of terrifying him. If he died outside of his ship, it was a fast, relatively painless death, usually. Better than being ripped apart inside a ship where munitions and debris could cut you to pieces before you drew your last breath. Walking on the side of S&R Black, his command, left him feeling confident and in control despite the fear he'd be too late to save Noble, at least until he saw the pine cones. Even from this distance, he saw the shadows of dozens of the creatures. He'd seen images of the things, but had just thought they were some new mineral Mira had brought back. The moment he saw them moving, how they seemed to draw in emptiness and then push it back out to propel themselves, there was no question they were alive. Heart rate rising, adrenal glands starting to pump, he disengaged his mag boots and hit the suit thrusters. The clouds of creatures were far too thick for him to approach them directly, and he didn't see Noble's suit lights. He needed to go up top. He flew upwards from the side of the ship, changed attitude until he faced the tail, and froze his ascent. Ahead of him, he saw Noble's suit lights flashing in between pine cones, pummeling him. Dunn held his flechette rifle forward, hit his thrusters again, and started the 10-second journey to the tail section. 5 seconds in, his HUD lit up with radiation warnings as well as a proximity alert. He eyed the strange image on the HUD just before it slammed into the hull next to Noble. The engineer was already doubled over from the impact of the creatures, just before the newcomer whirled one of its arms and smashed into Noble's leg. Dunn saw the leg snap just below the knee. He aimed the rifle, prepared to fire on the creature, and then Noble was no longer attached to the ship. The engineer shot into the air, the cut tether dangling on the hull like a lazy snake. Noble's arms flailed for an instant before going limp. His suit thrusters fired once more, sending him away from the ship in a spinning tumble. Dunn disconnected his tether, said a prayer to the void, and hit his suit thrusters. The creature attacking the pine cones reached an arm out for him as he passed. Dunn snap-aimed the rifle and fired. One of the tritium rounds left the barrel before its rocket engaged. The round was a streaking blur an instant before it detonated on one of the creature's limbs. He barely noticed the strange appendage shattering at its base. The creature jumped off the hull in the other direction. Dunn ignored the pine cones floating below him and remained focused on Noble's spinning form, but the light was quickly draining away, leaving him little more than a shadow. "Black," Dunn said, "you better bring me some help." He managed to keep his voice calm, although the adrenaline flowed through his veins with electric tingles.
"Captain, reinforcements are inbound."
Noble seemed to be moving further away. Dunn saw the telltale glow of his stuck thruster. "Noble, wake the fuck up!" There was no response. Dunn initiated a suit override through his block and shut down the thrusters. By the time the suit ceased propelling the unconscious engineer further into space, he was moving at more than 20 meters per second. Dunn had to be careful. He didn't have a line gun, just an emergency tether. He had to get close enough to corral the unconscious Marine, but he also had to make sure he had enough fuel to get back. Otherwise, this was going to be a one-way trip into darkness. He maglocked his rifle and increased his speed. Flying this fast, he'd have little room for error. If he hit Noble during the approach, he could damage both of their suits, not to mention push Noble further away. Dunn increased his speed. Noble's ragdoll arms flailed from the momentum. Dunn focused on the engineer's waist and tried to time his approach. If he hit the engineer's already broken leg, the bone could shred through the skin and perforate the suit. That was something he didn't want to think about. Dunn spread his arms wide and punched the thrusters once more. He flew through the darkness and connected with Noble's waist head first. The concussion filled his HUD with static for an instant before it normalized. Clamping his arms around Noble, the two Marines started twirling in an uncontrollable spin. They were moving at 25 meters per second from the ship now and heading deeper into the Kuiper Belt. Dunn tried to use the suit thrusters to stop the spin, but it was hopeless. Fuel was running low, and all he could do was hang on. "Black?" No response. "Black?" No response. Dunn ground his teeth. The void was welcoming him with open arms. Chapter 41. A cauldron of fiery anger filled Gunny's stomach. He was no longer afraid, no longer worried. He was just pissed off. "Get us there faster!" he yelled at Went.
"I have enough fuel for 3 more full burns, Gunny."
Went said.
"After that, we've got fumes."
Growling, Gunny targeted S&R Black's tail section over 100 meters away. The skiff's speed of 15 meters per second ate the distance faster than he liked, and yet not fast enough. "Black, where's the captain?"
"Sergeant, he has captured Lieutenant Noble. However, they are spinning out into space."
"Damn it, get me a lock!" His HUD lit up with a beacon from Dunn's suit. The two men were already 200 meters from S&R Black and moving fast. "Fuck the tail, Went," he said. "See that beacon on your HUD? Best speed, now!"
"Aye, Gunny,"
Went said. "Copenhaver, get ready with the line gun," he said. "The rest of you, assholes, get ready to provide some covering fire." The affirmatives pinged through the comms. Gunny focused the cannon on a shadowy form near the ship's tail. "Black, what the hell is that?"
"That is an exosolar life form, the same kind that attacked Lieutenant Talby."
"Shit," he said. "All right, Marines. You see something? I want to flechette up its ass." He switched the cannon's ammunition to anti-personnel rounds and prepared to fire. Just as the skiff came within 20 meters of the tail section, the shadow took flight straight at them. Without thinking, Gunny fired the cannon. A dozen flechette rounds flew through space and detonated a few meters from the fuselage. The clouds of flechettes pounded the shadowy form, knocking it away from the ship and the skiff. Pine cones descended into the maelstrom, the tungsten shards bouncing off their hardened shells in showers of sparks. The strange object spun away as if pushed by invisible hands. The skiff flew by the tail, the hull vibrating as it punched through the swirling pine cones and the remnants of flechette rounds. In his HUD's rear feed, he watched Copenhagen, Murdoch, and Like firing their rifles at the groups of remaining creatures. "Went," Gunny said. "I need more speed, and I need it right fucking now."
"Aye, Gunny,"
Went said. The skiff lurched, and Gunny leaned backward as the craft's rear thrusters came to life for a long burn. Their speed increased past 20 meters per second. 25, 30.
"That's as fast as I can go, Gunny. Any more than that, and we're not going back to S&R Black."
"Marines, tether yourselves and get ready to move. Copenhagen, take the gunnel and prepare for a shot,"
"Aye, Gunny,"
she said. The pinpricks of light in the distance might as well have been stars, except they were getting larger, closer. "Captain, do you read?"
"Aye, Gunny."
Dunn said.
"Where you been all my life?"
"On your six, sir. Prepare for a jolt."
"Looking forward to it. Just make sure you hit me and not Noble."
"Aye, sir," Gunny said. "Copenhagen?"
"Got it, Gunny."
The PFC said. Gunny swiveled the cannon, checking for more targets. There was nothing out here apart from the two humans locked together in a spinning tumble through space. Their suit lights were brighter now, and he made out the clump of shadows that was Noble and Dunn. The skiff rumbled from an attitude burn. Went had lined them up as best he could to fly right by the two men without hitting them, if they were lucky. "Get ready, PFC." She didn't answer. Copenhagen had already moved to the gunnel, the line gun held tightly in her hands. He knew she was sighting through her HUD, waiting for the range to close. If she missed, they might not have another shot at this, not if they wanted to get back to the ship. The skiff's floodlights painted Dunn and Noble. Wind constantly changed their focus and direction to keep the pair illuminated. 20 meters, 15, 10. "Fire!" Gunny yelled. The line gun's tether fired from the barrel with a brief instant of light. The magnetic harpoon lanced through the darkness before striking Dunn square in the back. Copenhagen leaned back as she waited for the tether slack to run out. The skiff flew past the two Marines a little more than 3 meters from them. Wind hit the forward thrusters and slowed the skiff, but it wasn't enough. The tether jerked hard enough to snap Copenhagen forward, but she held on. Murdoch had left his post to help her with the line. Gunny didn't know whether to scream at him or thank him. The thrusters burned again, the hull vibrating beneath his feet. Copenhagen activated the micro-engine, and the line began pulling Dunn and Noble to the skiff. Murdoch locked a mag-glove to Dunn's back, lifted him, and placed the pair gently on the deck. "Wint, get us the fuck out of here," Gunny said.
"Aye, Gunny."
He heard a smile in Wint's voice. "Captain?"
"I'm alive."
Dunn said. He sounded exhausted, and in more than a little pain. Gunny watched the commanding officer untangle himself from Noble, making sure to maglock the engineer's back to the deck, careful not to touch the broken leg.
"Gunny, what's her status?"
"Well, sir," Gunny said with a grin, "as you can see, my squad is here."
"Thankfully."
Dunn said.
"What about that thing on the hull?"
"I think we drove it off, sir," Gunny said.
"Let's hope so."
Dunn said, and stood from the deck. The skiff rotated after another attitude burn until it faced the shadowy form of S&R Black and the massive hulk beyond her. Gunny saw lights in the distance closing fast on their ship. "Is that what I think it is?"
"Aye, Gunny."
Dunn said.
"Talby's about to kick some ass."
"Wint, hit it!"
"Aye, Gunny."
The skiff vibrated again as Wint fired another full burn. The skiff's momentum dwindled to nothing before it began accelerating toward the ship. Dozens of pinpoints of light flared in space near S&R Black's tail. He hoped Talby could find a way to clear those things before they got back.